Hello, if you're new here, my name is Joanna, and today is my birthday. I thought I'd go ahead and celebrate doing the birthday book tag that I saw Mike from Mike's Book Reviews do recently, and I'm posting this on my birthday. So, prompt number one is Birthday Cake, a book with a plot that seems cliche, but you adore it anyway. And so, for this, I'm going to go with To Ride Hell's Chasm by Jenny Wirtz, because if you read the blurb on the back, you basically get the simple idea that the princess is missing, and these two men from very different backgrounds have to find her. And so, it's kind of like, sorry, Mario, your princess is in another castle. That's what came to my mind. But instead of having, two men from the same mother, you have two men from very different backgrounds. And so it was very fascinating to see how Jenny Wirtz took this very simple premise and put in some very clever twists along the way, did some incredible character work, added so much depth and nuance to the story with the themes. So I adored this. This is a wonderful classic fantasy standalone that I highly recommend if you're in the mood for that. Next, Unopened Gifts, your most anticipated book release this year. And there are a couple. One is Babel by R.F. Kuang, which comes out today. Although I did have some slight criticisms of the third book in the Poppy War trilogy, I enjoyed it overall, and I was still curious to see what R.F. Kuang comes out with after the Poppy War trilogy. And I've heard fantastic things for Babel so far from friends who've read it. So I'm very eager to go and pick up a copy, maybe today if I have a chance. And the other book that I am very highly anticipating is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Now, I finished the Dark Tower series earlier this month, and part of the incentive to finish the Dark Tower series was so I could read Fairy Tale when it comes out and not be spoiled in case there are any Dark Tower connections in that book. Next is Birthday Presents, a book that surprised you with how much you loved it. And this one is perfect because I just received this as a birthday present from my friend Brittany, and that is Stoner by John Williams. I listened to the audiobook to this earlier this year, which is free on Audible, and I was completely blown away how much I loved it. My mother also listened to the audiobook and was blown away too. Now, this book is about a man named William Stoner, and you get the premise within the first couple of paragraphs. It's a man who grew up on a farm. He moves away to go to school, to university to study agriculture, but instead, while he's there, he deeply falls in love with academia and with literature. And so he ends up studying literature and eventually gets a PhD, becomes a professor of literature. And you just follow his life until he dies. And it sounds very simple. If this were written by any ordinary author, this might be a very boring story. But because John Williams is such a gifted writer, you feel the tension with every difficult decision that William Stoner makes and with every character interaction. There is just so much subtext, so much beauty to the way he wrote this story that just made me feel so many things. I adored it. This is a story that will stay with me for a very long time and that I know I will enjoy upon reread. So this is definitely my answer for birthday presents. Next is The Happy Birthday Song, a book that certainly deserves all the hype it got. Now, there are so many people who are loving this book on BookTube this year, and I am right there with them with Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Now, I think that what this book does so well is it delivers exactly what it promises. Right on the cover, it says, a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. That is what you get. This is not some big epic quest journey. This is about an orc named Viv who decides to start a new chapter of her life, leave behind her warrior mercenary ways, and settle down and open a coffee shop in a town. And along the way, she recruits some people who become her friends. It's beautifully told. I just loved the way that Baldree wrote this book. It's not too long, not too short. It's the perfect palate cleanser. I love the way he described coffee to people who have never experienced it or seen it before, and the way that the coffee shop comes together. I just thought it was so well paced, so perfect for if you need a break after a lot of epic, dark, high stakes sort of stories, if you read a lot of those like I do. So I adored this book. Highly recommend it if you just want something light and fun and sweet. Next, birth year, a book that was published the year you were born. I found out that Unfinished Tales by J.R.R. Tolkien, edited by Christopher Tolkien, was published the year I was born. Next is Getting Older, a book that you read a long time ago, but you think that you would appreciate it more if you read it as a more mature reader. Now, the thing is, there are tons of books that I feel like I would appreciate more upon reread, not necessarily because I'm a more mature reader, but because I think that the best books have a lot of reread value, that you can get more and more things out of a book the more you reread it. And so there are a ton of books I could probably say that would fit that category. But the one I'm going to say for this one is going to be Ender's Game, because I read this about 11 years ago and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. But then I recently heard people talk about the deeper themes of empathy in this particular book. And I didn't really analyze it from that level, but I would like to reread it someday and see if I get more out of it than I did. But it's just a fun book anyway, so I think I would just enjoy rereading it, even if I don't get anything further out of it. Sweet Birthday Memories, a book that kept you incredibly happy during a sad or demanding period of your life. Now, I don't know if I would say that this book made me incredibly happy in the sort of typical way of defining happiness, but one book that really left a deep impact on me, that was very cathartic for me, maybe I should put it that way, was Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson, because I read that during a very difficult time in my life. I was going through a lot of physical pain with an injury that my doctor could never figure out. Actually saw a few doctors and no one could ever figure it out or find it on an MRI. But I was in a lot of pain, whether I was sitting or standing or moving. And it was very difficult because I'm very athletic. And so spending a lot of time not doing a lot of movement was very hard for me, not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And so that book, for whatever reason, I felt like it really resonated with me, and it took me out of myself, and it's brought me into a deeper connection with so many things. I think that was the book where the theme of compassion in the Malazan series really hit home for me for the first time. Reading the series, of course, it's there even from book one, but I feel like I really felt it and was able to connect to that even more when I read Memories of Ice. There's a lot to say about that book, but I'll just keep it short and say that book was very cathartic for me. It was very meaningful for me. It was exactly what I needed during a very difficult time in my life. Next is Party Guests. If you could spend your birthday with any fictional character, who would it be and why? So I always want to default to Gandalf and Lord of the Rings characters because I just adore those characters. But just to be different, I'm going to go with Vasya from the Winter Night trilogy. Now, not only is Vasya a very unique, strong-willed girl, I mean, she is kind of like the not like other girls type of girl, but it's well earned, it feels authentic, and I just really appreciated her character. She had a lot of agency throughout the trilogy, the Winter Night trilogy, but also she reminds me very much of some people that I care about on BookTube who love her, including my friend Ola from the channel Wild Witch and my friend Evie from She Was Only Evie, who's the one who got me to read that trilogy. So I just have to go with Vasya from the Winter Night trilogy, a fantastic character. And then next is Time of the Season. Find a book that takes place in a season you were born in. And my birthday always falls around the first day of school, which is never fun. So this might be the only answer I can think of because it's not really full into fall yet, and it's at the very end of summer, so I don't know if it counts as summer, but I guess I will say the Harry Potter series because it's always around the time when school starts for Hogwarts. All the books seem to start around then, so that's going to be my answer. Next, Color of Love. Find a book that is the color of your birthstone. And my birthstone is Peridot, which is like a light green color. And there are books I can think of that have that peridot color. So like, for example, Legends and Lattes, Viv is green. She is that color. But I think my answer for that is going to be, I have to try to choose different books, right? So I'm going to go with The Talisman because even though this isn't quite light green, it's still green. It works, I think. I haven't read this book yet. It was gifted to me for my birthday last year from my brother. But I understand this is very much like a fantasy type of king novel. It's quite chunky. And so I would like to get to this eventually. Next is Party Anywhere. Pick a book set in a time period, world, or country you would like to have been born in. And I know this is kind of a generic answer, but Lord of the Rings. There's a birthday party at the beginning of The Fellowship of the Ring. There are fantastic fireworks. I loved it. I think that it would just be wonderful to celebrate my birthday in the Shire or in Lothlorien. So that's going to be my answer. 30 Plus Club. Name a book or series with a protagonist that is 30 years old or greater. And that's easy. I think I'm going to go with the Queens of Renthia trilogy by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a wonderful trilogy that has queendoms, fantastic female representation. There are these tree villages and zip lines to get from one place to another. But there's a fantastic character introduced in book 2, The Reluctant Queen, named Naelin, who is in her 30s and she is a mother of 2. And I think she is just a very realistic older female character. So that is my answer for that. Next is Birthday Memories, a book that represents who you were when you were younger. Kind of tricky for me to figure that out. The Hobbit was the first fantasy book I had ever read when I was younger. But I guess for a different choice, I'll go with The Last Unicorn because I loved that book and movie when I was in high school. And I love that it was set in sort of like a medieval setting. At the same time, there's a touch of whimsy to it, obviously, with unicorns. So I really enjoyed it. I like the tropes in it and everything. So that definitely would represent me as a younger person, maybe as a younger fantasy reader. Next is This Birthday, a book that represents where you are in life now. I think I might have to go with Malazan Book of the Fallen because I finished that series at the end of last year. And ever since finishing that series, it's just left such an emotional mark on me. And I've read a lot of nonfiction books this year, not a lot, but a few nonfiction books this year. And every time I read a nonfiction book, I think about a lot of the themes in Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I guess I feel like so much of what I resonated with in that series somehow relates to my real life. And I feel like that's so rare for me to find that in a fantasy series, so I have to go with that answer. And the next is Every Birthday, a book that represents something that has never changed about you. The answer I'll give for that might have to be Farseer trilogy. Even though I just read the Farseer trilogy this year, I feel like certain qualities that Fitz had as a child, even getting older, as flawed as he was, I felt like I saw parts of myself in that character. Maybe there's something there, especially regarding loyalty, connection to other people, and sort of feeling certain conflicts with that. I think that I can resonate with even as an adult and maybe could even resonate with when I was younger, perhaps. I would have to think about it more. That's just what comes to my mind right now. Next, Happy Music, a book with some very beautiful and truly memorable quotes. Now, I have to admit that I love beautiful quotes and I do notice them when I read them, but I'm the worst at memorizing quotes. Mike from Mike's Book Reviews chose Dune, and that was such a great answer, especially with the Litany of Fear. There are so many fantastic epigraphs. I'm currently reading the 3rd book in the series, Children of Dune, and finding tons of fantastic quotes in that book. So I guess that would be an easy answer, would be the Dune books. But I guess to go with a different answer, I will say that I read the 1st book in the Wars of Light and Shadow series this year, The Curse of the Mistwraith, and I found there were just some beautiful passages in that book. Again, I'm the worst at memorizing quotes, but I did love many of the passages. And that is it for the tag. So thank you all so much for watching, and let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of any of my answers. I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know when your birthday is if you feel comfortable sharing, and you don't have to share how old you are or what year you were born if you don't want to share that, but I'd just love to hear from you. So thank you again for watching and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.